review. There's no reason not to move forward with this vital project. The President needs to get off the campaign trail long enough to get his administration out of the way so that the Keystone XL pipeline can be developed. Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Georgia, Mr. Woodall, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I appreciate the time this morning. I came down to talk about jobs, too, and I brought with me a card that folks may have seen. I know you've seen it, Mr. Speaker, that goes through those House-passed job agendas. And I try to keep it here in my pocket so I'll be accurate when we talk about all of the good work that is happening in the People's House to promote jobs and promote the economy, because the truth is, Mr. Speaker, as you know, we only have two pockets we can dig into. We can dig into the pocket where we talk about government regulations that we are repealing to help job creators. We can dig into the pocket where we talk about government mandates that we're repealing to take the foot of government off of the throat of small businesses, or we can dig into the other pocket. And the other pocket is where America's checkbook is. Because it's not my checkbook. As your congressman, you know, Mr. Speaker, when I dig into the pocket for the checkbook, I'm digging into your pocket. Every penny that we spend comes out of your pocket. So we have two choices as we talk about jobs and the economy. Are we going to dig into the pocket of the American taxpayer's checkbook, or are we going to get the regulatory burden off of America's small businesses? For me, the choice is easy. But the choice hasn't always been easy in this House. Time and time again, this House goes to the American people's checkbook to find solutions to America's problems. And I will tell you, there is no problem in America that taking money out of somebody else's pocket is going to fix. The challenges in America are going to come when we get government out of the way. You know, I represent, Mr. Speaker, as you know, a wonderful district in Georgia. I go back home, I talk about what's going on in the United States House. I ask folks what they want to happen on the United States House Representatives floor. They say, Rob, stop helping. Stop. Just get out of the way. Stop helping. You don't have the answers. Just get out of the way. If folks go, as you have gone, Mr. Speaker, to jobs.gop.gov, they see this House's effort to get government out of the way. To get government out of the way, and we've been successful. We were successful in passing the repeal of the President's health care bill 1099 provision that burdened small businesses, and the President signed that bill. We've been successful in passing 3 free trade agreements that the President has signed. As we know, we have manufacturing surpluses with every nation with which we have a free trade agreement. But the work still has to be done, Mr. Speaker. There are jobs bills languishing in the Senate. We call them the forgotten 15. 15 bills that the Senate could pass tomorrow to get government out of the way and get Americans back to work. Two pockets we have, Mr. Speaker, the American taxpayer's pocket and the pocket that contains the job-killing regulations that we can repeal today. Let's choose correctly, Mr. Speaker. Let's get jobs.gop.gov. Let's get this agenda done, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Mr. Olson, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Chairman, the President recently came before the People's House and asked whether, and I quote, in the face of an ongoing national crisis, can we stop the political circus and actually do something to help the economy? End quote. Well, Mr. Chairman, House Republicans agree. Circus time is over. And that's why we've passed 15 jobs bills that remain stuck in the Senate Majority Leader's inbox. One of those jobs bills is the Keystone XL pipeline, which imports oil from Canada and will create over 340,000, let me say that again, 340,000 American jobs by 2015. 27,000 of those jobs in my home state of Texas, while bringing in new revenue, all without costing the taxpayer one single dime. When the Keystone XL pipeline is fully operational, we will get more oil from Canada than we currently import from Saudi Arabia. Replacing OPEC oil with Canadian oil increases our energy security. And if we increase our energy security, we increase our national security. If we do not seize this opportunity, China will gladly take the oil from Canada that the Canadians want us to have. While the President tours the nation promoting a new $500 billion stimulus plan, approval of the Keystone XL pipeline remains stalled. Mr. Chairman, the President can jumpstart our economy and stop the political circus by approving the Keystone XL pipeline. The ball is in his court. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from South Carolina, Mr. Duncan, for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Everyone knows that Washington isn't very popular right now, and a big reason why is that too often our leaders make decisions that lack common sense. When we need to cut spending, Washington finds a way to spend more. When we need to create jobs, Washington piles on new regulations that puts Americans out of work. When we spend billions of dollars to create a safe, permanent storage facility for our country's nuclear waste, politics gets in the way and that facility is shut down. Like millions of Americans across the country, I'm tired that politics is getting in the way. And I'm looking to bring some common sense back to this republic. And as you know, Mr. Speaker, there's no better example of putting politics before country than the case of Yucca Mountain. Yucca Mountain is a multi-billion-dollar project that was supposed to be the solution for storing our country's nuclear materials. Ratepayers in states like South Carolina, ratepayers like my constituents have poured billions of dollars into the development of Yucca Mountain as a nuclear repository. Mr. Speaker, this administration needs to understand that America runs by the rule of law, and depositing our nuclear waste at Yucca Mountain is the law of the land. This administration does not get to make willy-nilly decisions that benefit supporters without congressional approval. And when Congress spoke in the National Waste Policy Act, it made Yucca Mountain the law of the land. I was deeply disappointed when presidential candidates were recently asked about Yucca Mountain. I was astonished that these good folks would echo the failed rhetoric of Senator Harry Reid. I would remind all presidential candidates of the federal government's promise to construct a long-term storage facility for the legacy weapons materials temporarily being stored in South Carolina. And I'd remind them that this is the law of the land. I suspect many South Carolina voters, including myself, will expect to hear the presidential candidates plan to solve this problem during their next visit to the Palmetto State. But let's talk about states' rights aspect of this. Where is South Carolina's right to be rid of this waste? This is a federally created problem, the residual waste of our Cold War weapons programs. Whole towns in my district were relocated by the federal government to create the Savannah River site. I'm not saying that we don't want the Savannah River site to continue the important nuclear nonproliferation work of the nation. And I commend NNSA's recent announcement concerning the conversion of some of this plutonium material into mixed oxide fuel for commercial reactors. What I am saying is that the nation needs to do right by South Carolina and fulfill the promise to take care of the radioactive waste and get it out of our state. Yucca Mountain is a geologically stable location. It's the right location for the job. It doesn't get much rain. It's in the middle of nowhere, and when it does rain, the arid climate evaporates the water. But let's take, for instance, that it may rain a lot one day, and for leakage to happen to Yucca Mountain, it would require that little bit of water that doesn't evaporate to transpose through 1,000 feet of granite-like rock. And then it's going to get to a concrete vault. And inside that concrete vault are stainless steel canisters. So the water erodes and transfers through 1,000 feet of granite rock, through the concrete, through the stainless steel, and it comes in contact with radioactive glass, glassified material that it's got to erode. And then the water's got to transfer that material through more stainless steel, through more concrete, through another 1,000 feet of non-porous rock down to an aquifer that is a closed system. This is why Yucca Mountain is the right place to do the job. No one thinks that rolling fields next to a river that is a water source for 2 states as it is at Savannah Riverside, is a long-term answer to the nuclear waste disposal. The sooner we recognize this, the sooner we can deal with the real problem. Now the Department of Energy's Blue Ribbon Commission is circulating a draft report on the future of America's nuclear waste, including the nuclear waste currently being temporarily stored at the Savannah Riverside. Savannah Riverside can only be a short-term home for this waste. The best long-term outlook for the waste of this sort is in a deep geologic site, hence the need for Yucca Mountain. The waste stored at Savannah Riverside can be processed for a number of purposes, but ultimately this waste needs to go deep underground. Mr. Speaker, I urge Representative Lee Hamilton and General Brent Scowcroft, the co-chairs of the Blue Ribbon Commission, to reconsider their draft report to include Yucca Mountain as the long-term disposal site that Congress mandated. Americans have already given billions of dollars to the state of Nevada for the construction of a safe, long-term storage site for nuclear material. President Obama and Senator Reid shouldn't be able to have it both ways. Nevada must either rebate the billions of dollars already spent on Yucca Mountain or stand out of the way and allow the facility to open for business. It would create jobs in the state of Nevada. South Carolina has unfairly carried the burden for storing nuclear material for decades already. It's time for this waste to move on. May God continue to bless America, and I yield back the balance.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from North Carolina, Ms. Fox, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when I go home every weekend and talk to my constituents, there are two things that they ask me repeatedly. What can be done about jobs, and what can be done about energy prices? My constituents understand the colossal failure of the Obama stimulus bill. My constituents understand that government can create jobs only for more government bureaucrats. And those bureaucrats will have to justify their existence by creating more regulations that will kill more private sector jobs. The liberal Democrats in Congress keep asking for a Republican jobs bill. Well, Mr. Speaker, we have passed at least 15 jobs bills, and we have them outlined on this card, as my two colleagues before me talked about, and they are shown on jobs.gov. GOP.gov. We've passed at least 15 jobs bills that will help the private sector do exactly what Americans are asking us to do, which is to create jobs through growth in their businesses and allowing new businesses to form. The liberal elites keep buying into the failed theory that government will create millions of jobs. The reality is that unless we provide the private sector with an environment that is conducive to job creation, jobs will be hard to come by. Mr. Speaker, I remember the cost of a gallon of gasoline when President Obama was sworn in. It was $1.85. Today, it is at least $3.45, an 86% increase, and it was a 100% increase until very recently. Republicans have addressed this with legislation that increases American energy production, provides us with energy security, and lowers our dependency on Middle Eastern oil. Mr. Speaker, Republicans, listen to the American people. We are acting to provide business owners and entrepreneurs the tools that they need to create jobs and, at the same time, reduce the cost of energy. We've advanced legislation that will help our constituents in these two very important ways, by helping businesses in their communities hire people and by reducing the cost of energy. But what has happened to legislation that will put Americans to work and lower energy costs? Democrat intransigence. The Senate has had these bills for months now and has failed the American people by refusing to take action. Senate Democrat Majority Leader Reid recently said, quote, "It's very clear that private sector jobs are doing just fine," end quote. This failure to accept the reality that the job-killing anti-growth policies of this administration and the liberal elites are the key contributors to the 9.1% unemployment rate that continues to be in the United States. The liberal Democrats keep pushing for what is almost a carbon copy of the failed Obama stimulus that cost the taxpayers almost $1 trillion without having the slightest positive impact on unemployment and the economy. Now President Obama and the liberal elites are asking to do it all over again. More spending, fewer jobs. The administration wants to continue to pick winners and losers and fund unproven technologies that cost the taxpayers billions with little or no return. One shining example, if that's the way you want to look at it, is the cylinder fiasco. The administration acted like a venture capital firm and squandered $500 million, leaving the taxpayer holding the bill. Mr. Speaker, while the liberal elites in the House and Senate keep thinking that the private sector, the job-creating sector, is doing fine, House Republicans will continue to craft and pass legislation to help job creators, to lower energy prices, and to improve the economy. And I encourage Americans to learn about this on their own through jobs.gov, jobs.gop.gov, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlelady yields back. The gentleman from California, Mr. Herger, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, this House has sent numerous jobs bills to the Senate in an effort to get our nation back to work. I want to call particular attention to the 3% withholding repeal legislation I authored, which passed the House with overwhelming bipartisan support just last week. This legislation will help many small businesses create more jobs, and the Senate should act on it without further delay. The House-passed bill would eliminate a burden on job creators by repealing a tax that requires government agencies to withhold 3% of all payments for goods and services. As someone who comes from a small business background, I can attest that although this provision does not take effect until the end of next year, it hurts job creation now because businesses look several years ahead when they are deciding how to invest. It is not surprising that over 150 businesses, healthcare, education, and local government groups support the passage of this legislation. In addition, over 400 members of the House of Representatives have voted for it, and President Obama has endorsed it, as well as Representative Black's associated cost-saving measure. Instead of waiting for more stimulus bills that face bipartisan opposition, the Senate should work with the House to pass the jobs bills like this one that are supported by both parties. There are already 15 jobs bills passed by the House that are being delayed unnecessarily, and 3% withholding repeal joins those forgotten 15 in waiting in our U.S. Senate and by our Senate colleagues. The House version of this repeal continues to have strong bipartisan support. The Senate has heard from job creators, just as we have, about the need for this legislation, and they should work with us in passing common sense jobs bills, starting with the repeal of the 3% withholding tax. I yield back.
Recognize the gentleman from Nebraska, Mr. Terry, for 4 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm the author of one of the bills sitting in the Senate, the Forgotten 15. This is a bill that will instantaneously create 20,000 jobs and spin off a potential 100,000 to 200,000 additional jobs and put us on the path to energy security. I'm talking about the pipeline bill, the Keystone XL pipeline. Now, that bill was passed on a massive bipartisan vote, 279 to 174, one of the best bipartisan showings of non-suspension bills. It was placed on the Senate calendar on July 28th. We held a press conference asking the Senate to take it up. We sent a bipartisan letter to the majority leader asking him to place it on the calendar for vote. This bill just simply set a timeline for the President and State Department to make a decision. Then it was November 1st. We sit here on this day, November 4th, I think it's the 4th, and the President just said 2 days ago to a local Omaha TV station anchorman that he'll make a decision in a few months. Well, I would encourage the Senate to take up this bill, change the date, obviously, maybe to December 1st or December 15th or December 31st. But the reality is this bill, or this permit for this pipeline is 1,142 days old. That's double the record time for any other transcontinental pipeline. Double. Yes, there is a political storm about environmental safety. This Trans-Canadian pipeline has been studied more than any other pipeline. The environmental assessments say this is the most secure pipeline ever designed and has little to no impact to the environment of the sandhills of Nebraska and the underlying aquifer. Now, since all of the studies have shown there's little to no risk to the environment, and pipelines remain the safest way to transport oil to our United States refineries, and this puts us on a path to energy security. In fact, the 700,000 barrels that come from our friend Canada offsets the oil we import from Venezuela, and even the Department of Energy said that this will almost offset all of OPEC oil. I think that secures our nation. And should I mention the 20,000 labor jobs created by this pipeline? The fact that it doesn't impact the fragility, the ecosystem or environment of the sandhills and the aquifer. Mr. Leader, bring this bill up in the Senate. Let's create these jobs. Let's produce our infrastructure, and let's secure America's energy future. Yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Fitzpatrick, for 4 minutes. Request to revise and extend. Without objection. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today as we approach Veterans Day, and we set aside time to recognize our nation's veterans, but also to address the problem of homelessness among those who have served our nation. Homelessness is a problem facing many Americans today, but it is particularly acute in the veteran community. While less than 10% of the population of the United States are veterans, they comprise 25% of the entire homeless population. All told, the Veterans Administration estimates that there are 107,000 homeless veterans nationwide. Among a population that have devoted themselves to the service of our nation, these numbers are unacceptable. The National Cemetery at Washington Crossing is located in my congressional district in Bucks County, Pennsylvania, and serves as a final resting place for many veterans. The location of the National Cemetery is in the heart of Pennsylvania's 8th Congressional District and places the plight of all veterans, homelessness or not, preeminently in the collective psyche of my community. Bucks County takes a solemn measure of pride in guarding both the mortal remains and the honor of veterans from across the nation. And while Bucks County is honored and proud to provide a final resting place, a final home to our nation's veterans, our nation must ensure all veterans are honored and sheltered while they are living as well. Today I would like to share one of their stories. This past Flag Day, I was handed a pouch containing spent shell casings from a memorial service at the National Cemetery. The casings were from the service of U.S. Army veteran John Griffin, who was buried at the National Cemetery at Washington Crossing earlier this year. John served our nation in Vietnam from 1968 to 1970. He passed away in February of this year at a nursing home in Pennsylvania, and for some period before John entered the nursing home, he was homeless. John's service was not attended by any relatives or friends. The National Cemetery holds monthly services for veterans who are laid to rest without the presence of their families. At this service, the flag that draped John's coffin was accepted by a group of women from the community who have undertaken this role to provide a measure of respect and recognition to those who have passed. Despite numerous inquiries, neither I nor my staff has been able to learn any more about the life, service, or death of John Griffin. We know that John was honorably discharged, but beyond that, his life and his service to our nation have been lost for the next generation of soldiers who will serve. In his second inaugural address, President Lincoln, looking at the wounds that needed to be healed as the Civil War drew to a close, charged our nation to care for him who shall have borne the battle. This we must do, but we must be ever mindful that homelessness among veterans or among the population at large is often a symptom of a deeper problem. Addiction, post-traumatic stress disorder, and strained family relations can collude to leave veterans without shelter. And while these factors may explain homelessness among veterans, they do not excuse us as a nation from remedying it. I do not know with any certainty what, if any, causes led to John Griffin's homelessness, but I'm certain that our nation owed him better. We owed him more than a makeshift camp in the local woods. We must rededicate ourselves to the service of those who have served our nation. The story of John Griffin is not rare, but we must work to make it so, because among the men and women who sacrificed and risked their lives in the service of our nation, one homeless veteran is too many. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Louisiana, Mr. Cassidy, is recognized for 2 minutes.
Request permission to revise and extend.
Without objection.
Unemployment continues to hover over 9%. And when we say unemployment as 9%, that is a statistic, but we all know that it's not just a statistic, it is a family. It is a family which is less able to provide, less able to have stability because of this unemployment rate. Now, as it turns out, the unemployment rate is not generally distributed. It turns out it's principally among blue-collar workers. Blue-collar workers have traditionally been employed in manufacturing, construction, and mining. And this is one of the reasons why I and many Republicans and many Democrats so strongly support the Keystone XL project. Think about it. Because they will extract that oil from the ground, creating jobs there, they are then going to build a pipeline, construction, and to build that pipeline they have to manufacture steel. We're going to be creating jobs by this one project in the 3 areas that those who are now unemployed are principally employed in. Now, this is not done with government subsidies. It does not put the taxpayer at risk. Indeed, it will generate more tax, not by increasing rates, but by increasing income, more tax receipts to help lower our nation's deficit. I could go on about the increase in energy security, about how the oil sands actually have a better carbon footprint than some of the oil we are now importing from Venezuela, but bottom line is, we are in a recession of 9%. The President has the ability to create 20,000 jobs directly and 100,000 thereafter. I think because of this, and to show the kind of across-the-aisle support for this, this pipeline is supported by the Laborers International Union of North America, the Teamsters, the AFL-CIO, the Pipeline Contractors Association, and other major unions. Mr. President, please create 20,000 jobs directly, 100,000 jobs indirectly, total package, targeting those people who are most unemployed now without using a government subsidy, and in fact by increasing government tax receipts, and in so doing increase our energy security. Please approve the Keystone XL project. I yield back.
Gentleman's time has expired. Pursuant to Clause 12A of Rule 1, the Chair declares the House in recess until noon today.
And the House returns at noon. They will take up a couple of bills, a pair of bills dealing with SEC regulations for small business.